Good evening, everyone. Welcome in. It is Iowa Primetime Live. We are your hosts. I'm Josh Helmer. He's Zach Hiney. Good evening, everyone. Hope you enjoyed week one of college football, week one of the Iowa football season. And away we go into week two. It is rivalry week for the Hawkeyes. Time to try to go upset the apple cart, as Iowa has made a habit of doing, dating all the way back to 2011. The Hawkeyes winners of 6 straight in the Iowa Corn Cy-Hawk series when the game is played over at Jack Trice Stadium, where, of course, it's going to be played come Saturday morning with a big noon kickoff on Fox. Josh Elmer alongside Zach Hiney. This is Iowa Primetime Live, and it's Iowa at the voice of college football. Go ahead and follow us. I am at Josh on Hawks. He is at Zach_Hiney. We are one half of the Hawkeyes Wire team, so you can follow our written work at Hawkeyes Wire on social media, and, of course, HawkeyesWire.com, where you can just go make that a part of your morning cup of coffee. And, of course, everybody should be following the voice of college football at the VOCFB. Mr. Zach Hiney, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing much better now that we have actual football on the field to talk about. Not all of it good, as we'll get into, I'm sure, later on in the show. But it felt normal to have Iowa football back on the TV on a Saturday and seeing a packed Kinnick Stadium and the swarm and the wave after the first quarter. Like, things are getting back to normal. It feels like we're entering football season. Obviously, the college season being underway for a few weeks now. NFL kicking off this week. It's finally September. Like, it's go time, and I can't wait.
Well, good evening, everyone. T. Hink, I see, is in the house. He's calling for an Iowa W. Pressure on Iowa State. The Cyclones, no doubt, probably going to climb in the rankings when we get those new rankings tomorrow. Not everybody, though, feeling confident in the Hawkeyes going into this thing. Eric and I think some others, we might have to try to talk off the ledge a little bit tonight. Maybe we won't be able to accomplish that with you, but good evening, Hawkeye fans, all the same here on Iowa Primetime Live. Okay, we've got an hour to do this thing and a lot to get to, so let's just dive right in. Right off the top, not going the negative route for you off the top. There's an elephant in the room. We'll get to that elephant in the room, I promise, before night's in tonight. But what we liked versus Albany, let's start there tonight on Iowa Primetime Live. And what did you guys like versus Albany as well in the season opener for the Hawkeyes? Iowa wins it 34-7. Of course, was the final over the weekend. And Zach, I will toss the floor over to you to start. What did you like for the Hawkeyes versus Albany?
Yeah, I think Iowa dominated in the trenches. I think that was something where if you're looking for an edge for Iowa next week, and we'll talk about the Cy-Hawk game later, but if you're looking for a place where Iowa's maybe got the advantage, that's probably where you're going to find it. I saw that PFF graded out Iowa as their offensive line of the week. All 5, or I guess 6 starters along that offensive line had a grade over 80, which is very good for a PFF grade. And so, seeing that unit put in work, the D line was getting pressures all night long, only 2 sacks, and so they'll have to work on finishing off a few more of those pressures. But I mean, it's Albany. You're supposed to do it, but it's nice to actually see you do it. And so the offensive line and the defensive line really dominating in the trenches was nice to see. Obviously, the running game was really good. Iowa rushed for over 300 yards with a big majority of tailbacks, although there was an injury there that I'm sure we'll talk about later as well. And so I think really the running game and then winning in the trenches was what I really enjoyed to see, as well as obviously the special teams being elite per usual, restaking with a couple nice punts. Drew Stevens' career-long 55-yard field goal, which after seeing what the Iowa State kicker did this past Saturday, it kind of seems like if either offense gets to around the 40-yard line or so, they're in field goal range for their kickers, which will add an interesting wrinkle to that game on Saturday. And then we saw Sam Phillips late in the game with that punt return. So Iowa special teams winning in the trenches and the running game, I think, are things to be really excited about and things to be positive about with Iowa, which most fans right now are not super positive with Iowa after that game. And so trying to find some things to be excited about, but I think those are the things that I really like to see in that Albany game.
Well, how about this in the realm of positives? Extra, read all about it, baby, at HawkeyesWire.com. It's Xavier Williams eruption. And obviously, just across the board, Iowa, they really ran the football effectively. We're going to talk about the passing game. And I know that was like many off seasons before it. Zach, that's been the discussion over the offseason is this Iowa passing game actually going to be fixed? Okay, the answer's not great on that front, at least one game in. But the run game with this offensive line that you returned names like Bo Stevens and Logan Jones, and you've got Jennings Dunker out there. Peeper, somebody that folks were excited about. You had a left tackle battle that we spent a lot of this off season dissecting. Was it going to be Lauk? Was it going to be Doetzler? We had Bryce George and Cannon Leonard at times discussed in that mix. Well, seems like now the job, at least for the foreseeable future, is going to be Trevor Lauk going forward. And look for any issues that existed in the passing game. It really didn't look like, Zach, because your passers didn't have time back there. It looked like Gronowski had time to operate and survey and go make some decisions. The way that they ran the football, you got to go back all the way to 2002 to see Iowa run the football in an opener, the way that they ran the football in this opener versus Albany. So if we're talking positives, it's got to be that offensive line. It's got to be Xavier Williams, and it's got to be the way that the Hawkeyes ran the football was really, really impressive.
Yeah, and I really got the idea from Kirk Ferentz and Tim Lester that after that third drive, where, because if you remember, they had the opening drive where they went down, they missed the touchdown and had the field goal, and then it was back-to-back punch, and they didn't gain a yard, and they were trying to pass the ball, they're trying to set it up, and it just wasn't working, and then Albany took the lead 7-3, and I think the minute that happened, Kirk Ferentz intervened. He went up to Tim Lester and said, "Hey, like, we're running the ball." Like, they knew from the first run play of that game that Albany was going to have no chance to stop that run game at all. I think Kamari Moulton ripped off a big run, like 8 yards or something like that, and they knew from the first play that they were going to be able to do whatever they wanted in the running game. And I think they really tried to get the passing game into a rhythm early on. It wasn't working, and they fell behind, and they said, "Hey, this is not a good look optically for us. We're probably not going to lose the game, but this really is not good, trailing in the second quarter to Albany at home. So, let's go on the ground." And I think they ran like 8 of 9 plays on that next drive, drove right down the field. Xavier Williams was the bell cow on that drive, and then they never looked back. And I don't have the stats right in front of me, but I would be shocked if that run pass ratio was lower than 80-20 the rest of the game, probably 85-15. Like, they completely took the ball out of the air in that game, and it worked. They rushed for over 300 yards. It's not what Iowa fans wanted to see, but it was the hot hand. The offensive line was moving dudes all night long. The running backs looked shifty and fast, and they were finding holes, and they were breaking tackles. Like, if it works, it works. And so I think that Iowa knew exactly what they wanted to do and what they were able to do against that defense. And once they fell behind, it was an optics battle, and they took the ball out of the air and ran the ball. And to their credit, ran it very well. Yeah,
and they probably, for a portion, the duration of this game, but a portion where you kind of like, do we have to be nervous for a second right now versus Albany? Are you kidding me? So you probably, for at least a moment, you needed to just turn and hand the football off. And it was Xavier Williams that really provided that spark for Iowa on that drive. Had, the big chunk run, and obviously got into the end zone. And then you just, a bunch of folks, ran the football effectively for Iowa, which now as we, point forward, you're going to need Williams and, TJ Washington and these guys to continue to be good, because were under the impression that Kamari Moulton probably not going to be around, at least in the immediate here, with a shoulder injury that he's recovering from. You had him for just, I think it was 6 snaps on Saturday, just that opening series, and then boom, you had to turn to other faces. So good to see other running backs step up. Defensively, I thought Iowa was pretty good in this game defensively. You know, obviously give up the one drive there where they got in, but otherwise very good. You're breaking in new linebackers, and I thought that was pretty good. The corners, you wanted to see what that looked like for Iowa. So defensively, as it should against Albany, I thought, Zach, it was a nice performance defensively for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, outside of that one drive, and sometimes like you just have to give credit to the other quarterback. And I know it's Albany, but Jack Shields was making some throws on that drive against some pressure, and a tip of the cap to him and that Albany offense for moving the ball on that one drive. But they did absolutely nothing in that second half. Iowa's defense was completely locked in. The defensive line was dominant. The new linebackers, I didn't notice super much, which isn't a bad thing, by the way. Like, if it's sometimes not the worst thing to not notice some new players in new places, because that means that they're just doing their job. And the secondary wasn't tested very often in this game. And so I think we'll know a lot more about that unit for sure after next week's game. But I think outside of that one drive, Iowa's defense did exactly what you wanted them to do against Albany. I mean, they gave up 7 points. Most people were predicting Albany to get 3 to 6 to 10 points in that range, and Iowa held them right where they did. And so outside of that one drive, there's not really anything that's super concerning about that Iowa defense. And I'm sure that they kept their schemes pretty vanilla in this game, not trying to give too much away to Iowa State. I didn't see a whole lot of blitzes in this game or a whole lot of exotic coverages. I think Phil Parker is saving some things for the Cyhawk game on Saturday. And, with that vanilla defense, Iowa still went out and dominated. And so, I mean, it's a really impressive performance from them, but obviously the big test against a much better quarterback will be next week.
Max Llewellyn, Jonah Pace had good performances up front for Iowa in this game. And yes, it, as we all know, going to be a different test coming up this week. Hey, want to invite all of you to go check out the shop because, again, we tell you every time we hop on here with Iowa Primetime Live now that we have merch. It directly supports us in Iowa, the voice of college football. And, oh, by the way, the merch is just pretty sweet for Hawkeye fans. VOCFB.com/shop. And please use our promo code. That is VOCFB Iowa. Give you a little look at what some of the merch looks like out there. And it looks like this. We've got caps for you that you can go check out. The camo trucker cap, can't go wrong there. That's pretty sweet. There are polos for Iowa fans, VOCFB Iowa polos out there. And as I always say, Zach, you know me, my favorite, I like just the extra trinkets, if you will, here, the extra goodies, the VOCFB Iowa coffee mug. I mean, come on, I'm always fueling up, the tumbler, and for game day, you got to have that cooler, the can cooler on the far right there. So please go check out all of the wonderful merch that we have. Again, one more time for you, VOCFB.com/shop, and use our promo code VOCFB Iowa. Okay, well, we've stalled long enough. The elephant in the room. That's what I am. I don't know. Affectionately is not the right word, Zach, by any stretch of the imagination, but that's what I am authoring this segment right here. The elephant in the room. It was rough throwing the football for Iowa. I know you as a fan, somebody that has grown up in the state. You, like all of us, though you just joined the HawkeyesWire.com team, we've all been waiting and talking about, is this the year that Iowa has found the next quarterback that it can trust to go be a Stanley, a Tate and others that have been positive, a Beathard for Iowa. And we're still hoping that Gronowski can be that guy, but the opening returns were not what any of us were expecting. He was inaccurate. He looked nervy out there for Iowa. Obviously, he had the cramping issues a little bit later on, but the returns on the throw game against an FCS opponent in Albany, look, there's no way to come on here or any other Iowa forum and say that it's anything other than discouraging. It was very disheartening what we saw in the throw game from Iowa.
Yeah, and it was hard to watch at times. And like I don't have great eyesight, obviously, because I'm wearing these. But if I had taken off my glasses at some point during that game and was watching Iowa's offense, and you hadn't told me any of the offseason news that happened, I would have thought it was Cade McNamara back there throwing the ball. I would have had no idea that Iowa had a quarterback change because it looked just like the passing game did at its worst last year. And I mean, obviously, what Gronowski can bring in the running game is way better than what you got from McNamara, who's basically a statue in the pocket. But it doesn't, the extra running game and that mobility is nice, but if you're not hitting the routine throws, it doesn't matter. And 8 of 15 for 44 yards was that stat line. Like that's like we're in Deacon Hill territory with those numbers, and that's not a quarterback at Iowa that you ever want to be compared with numbers wise. And I think that first drive was really indicative of what was going on, where he missed Sam Phillips wide open in the end zone. And I still can't tell if it was tipped or not by that Albany defensive player, because on first initial look, I thought it was, and then people online were saying it wasn't tipped. And then I heard some beat writers say that it was tipped. So I have no idea. If it was tipped, obviously it's out of his control. But if it wasn't tipped, that was a terrible throw. It bounced about 5 yards in front of a wide open Sam Phillips in the end zone, who was very clearly frustrated later in that game with the lack of targets thrown his direction, and then whatever that ball that he kind of lobbed over, I think it was Terrell Washington in the flat. Against a good team, that's probably a pick six. Like you just can't throw. I'm not sure what the idea was with that, and it just didn't look good. And then we saw the next 2 drives. He had a wide open Seth Anderson, who we thought made a grab and ran for about 15 yards, but it was incomplete because the throw was at his shoelaces, and he was wide open. Like that's a throw that you got to hit. So it's just the routine stuff that I think is the most frustrating for Iowa. Like obviously, it would have been nice to see him come out and sling a 50-yard completion right away or whatever. But I mean, you have to make the routine plays routine, and Mark Gronowski just didn't do that on Saturday. I will say that he ended well. He finished 6 for 7 for 31 yards and that touchdown, I believe, before he started cramping. He ran the ball very well. I didn't like how much he was getting hit in that game. Really don't like that against an FCS school. But if you're looking for some kind of positive, which is very hard to find in this passing game, is that he did end better. But I think it's obviously very discouraging, and I'm not. I texted our group chat earlier because they were talking about the panic meter, and I'm curious what everyone in the chat has to think about that. But the panic meter for Mark Gronowski and this passing offense: 1, not worried 1 bit, to 10, put in Hank Brown. What's everyone's panic meter at? I'm at about a 4 right now. Another performance like that on Saturday, I'm probably closer to a 9.5. This game means everything on Saturday, and so I'm curious what everyone in the chat, their panic meter is at with the passing game, and then I'll throw that question back to you, Josh.
Yeah, I'm definitely more in the 6, 7 type range, which is exactly what Eric just tossed into the chat right there. I'm concerned. I'm concerned. Are you kidding me? It was an FCS opponent, and the just wild inaccuracies to open targets in the end zone. That's the one item what you were talking about, Zach. The hope from Mark Gronowski, more really than anything, the addition of Mark Gronowski coming over from South Dakota State was, here's somebody for the first time in a long time is going to just make the makeables for us. Just make the makeables for us. And the fact that that didn't happen versus Albany, given the history of this Iowa program, I just think it would be dishonest to get in front of a microphone and talk to the people and say anything other than, yeah, I'm pretty legitimately concerned with what we saw. Now, okay, it's one performance, albeit again against Albany, who's an FCS foe, but this was a new arena for Mark Gronowski to some degree to be the guy. He's the quarterback at Iowa. And oh, by the way, I mean, look, whether Gronowski was a part of it or not, Gronowski knows the history of Iowa quarterbacks and the pressure on this offense and the shortcomings of its passing offense. So that in conjunction with, okay, welcome to 70,000 plus, and you're the guy, and we're swarming at Kinnick. I understand, and Mark Gronowski admitted as much, that he was a little bit probably too geeked up, a little too wound up for the start. So I expect some of that to come back down to earth. Though, look, it's going to be challenging going over to Jack Trice Stadium and everybody's against you there. I don't know. There was some debate or discussion, Zach, that I think it was Chad Leistico asked the question to Kirk Ferentz. Could that help a veteran quarterback going out and being in the road environment instead of sometimes every once in a while being at home is almost more pressure-packed in some ways than going on the road, which it probably shouldn't be that way, but sometimes it looks that way. So I don't know. Maybe there's something there, but on the panic meter, I would have to lean more toward, yes, I'm panicked than, no, I'm wait and see. I mean, no, I'm a little panicked because of the history of quarterback play at Iowa. The fact that, look, the makeables didn't get made in this game. Now, am I ready to turn the football over to Hank Brown and feel really confident in that? No, I'm not confident in that option either.
Yeah, and you know what, Josh? Like the one thing that I can't believe that this group is avoided the scrutiny that Mark Gronowski has gotten, but that wide receiver room was extremely disappointing on Saturday, and I'm at a point, and I know we've talked about it with Seth Anderson and people like that, and it's always, he's had a great camp and a great Kids Day, and I'm at a point with Iowa's wide receivers where I don't care what happens in practice. I don't care what happens at Kids Day or in the offseason or what the reports are or what the coaches say about how good they look. I don't care about that anymore. Like, until Iowa's wide receivers actually do it in an actual game on the field in the regular season, that matters. I'm done buying into the hype. I'm done, expecting anything from Iowa's wide receivers because Mark Gronowski was bad. Like, no excuses. Like he took the brunt of that after the game. But Iowa's wide receivers were not getting open. Like, they weren't helping him out very much. There was a drop from KJ Parker, I think, that if he makes that play, who knows what happens with Mark Gronowski's confidence to pick up a first down on that play. Like, I'm getting really sick and tired of the wide receiver room every single year, getting hype in the offseason. It's going to be different this year. We have this guy, we have that guy, and then it never happens in the regular season. Or they'll do it against an FCS school, and then they'll disappear in Big Ten play. Like, and I know it's Iowa's scheme. They run the ball, they get the ball to the tight ends. Like, I understand it's not all their fault, but the wide receiver room, I'm shocked about how, Lamar Jackson in the pocket, like they avoided the scrutiny that Mark Gronowski got, and I have no idea how, because they were not helping him out at all on Saturday.
I will say this, and your fear is if you can't throw it, then okay, obviously everybody loads up the box, and that makes life tough for Kamari Moulton if and when he comes back, whatever the timeline looks there. Xavier Williams, TJ Washington, right? Jazz Patterson, insert Nathan McNeil, insert running back name here. It makes that life more difficult, and obviously it makes it difficult for Gronowski to on the quarterback run game to run the football. But I liked what we saw from Gronowski in the quarterback run game. If I can get into a couple more positives again, I do like what we saw there from Mark Gronowski. He's if they can figure out the throw game a little bit, he's got to settle down and be more accurate. He certainly can be a dual threat guy for Iowa. So that was positive. I'm with you. You took one too many hits, but there's something there from Gronowski running the football. So that definitely was a positive.
Yeah, and I think, I went back and rewatched a little bit of the game too, and I think it was T.J. Washington after the game said that, or Xavier Williams, one of the running backs, said that Albany, was running, a very deep coverage. Like they did not want to get beat deep in that game, and so they were running, a defense that Iowa wasn't really game planning for. Iowa was kind of expecting Albany to kind of load the box and try and stop the run and maybe, leave a receiver one-on-one on the outside for a shot. But Albany was playing very conservative defense and not wanting to get beat deep. Obviously not an excuse. It's an FCS defense, but, Albany did throw Iowa for a loop there. But I liked what Mark Gronowski did in the running game as well. Again, I don't like how much he was getting hit, but he showed some elusiveness. He showed some mobility. They even called some quarterback draws, which I know we saw a bit last year with Brendan Sullivan. But before that, I can't remember the last time we had seen a design quarterback draw in the Iowa offense. And so it's a fun wrinkle to add to the offense, but ultimately it doesn't matter unless you're throwing the ball, because a passing performance like that against Iowa State is not going to cut it. You're not winning that game. And so we're going to learn a lot. I think Iowa State they're a smart program. Their defensive coordinator is very smart. Matt Campbell's a good coach. They're going to load the box on Saturday. Iowa's not going to run the ball. If Iowa State has their way, Iowa's not going to be able to run the ball. And they're going to make Iowa complete some passes and prove that can be part of the game plan before they respect it. And so Mark Gronowski and these receivers are going to have opportunities on Saturday. They're going to get one-on-one coverage. They're going to get a chance to go deep, and can he pull the trigger on it? I think that'll be the big thing. We can talk more about Iowa State a bit later as well. But I just think I'm at about a 4.5. It's very concerning against an FCS school. But the way I think about it is like this, Josh. If Mark Gronowski and this passing offense goes out on Saturday against Iowa State and plays really well and picks up a win, not one single person will care about the Albany game.
Well, right.
But if they went out against Albany and threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns and then played like this against Iowa State, no one would care about the Albany game. And so I think Iowa has a chance to completely rewrite the narrative on Saturday. But if you don't, then that concern level, I think, is really going to rise. But I think, against Iowa State, there's a huge opportunity for Iowa to completely change the narrative about that passing game.
Agreed. It's not a tell-all game for Iowa because, look, you got so much left after this Cy-Hawk game. But it will be pretty illuminating if Iowa bounces right back in the throw game. If Gronowski does appear settled down, maybe they held a couple of puzzle pieces back and those extra wrinkles open things up, and boom, Gronowski, is effective in the throw game. And we see Gill and Anderson and Phillips and on and on and on, Ostringa. If we see those guys go make plays versus Iowa State and you go win the game, and it doesn't have to be 275 yards passing. 220 and some important third down conversions. If you get that, then yes, Albany's forgotten. If it's, I'm not saying 44 yards again from Mark Gronowski, but if it's not particularly accurate and they don't hit any explosives in the pass game, then yeah, folks are going to wonder, is this the exact same Iowa for the most part that we've been accustomed to of late? And I think that's fair. That's a reasonable critique if it plays out that way. Before we move on, here was Mark Gronowski in postgame talking about his performance.
Shoulder feels great. I'm disappointed in how I played today. But this season, it's a whole journey. It's a whole long journey. Kind of keep improving every single week. Me and the receivers are going to continue to get better every single week. But I got to give a good shout out to our linemen this week. They played a great game through and through. I mean, over 300 yards rushing. Can't ask for much better than that. And I mean, X had an awesome game too. All our running backs did. So I'm happy on that side of things. But we got to pick it up on the passing game side.
Mark, you talked about how you are your harshest critic. I guess now that you've played a lot of college games, how do you kind of balance between being critical of yourself, but also giving yourself grace and kind of patience with the process too?
Yeah, and again, what I said earlier is like it's a long journey. You know, it's the first game in Kinnick as an Iowa Hawkeye. So I was a little too excited at the beginning of the game. I got to get settled in a little bit more. I feel like going into next week and the rest of the season, we're going to continue to get better on that side of things. But personally, I need to be better all around. But there's still a lot of good that came out of it. We made some good reads. Made some great runs as well. So just continuing to progress on the good and fix the bad when we get into film tomorrow.
And we'll see how much we can buy into the nerves of the moment and just settling down and getting a little bit more seat time, if you will, as Iowa's starting quarterback. Maybe that'll solve a lot of this for Iowa. You certainly hope that's the case. Kirk Ferentz, of course, going to, as he always is, be much more positive than he is negative.
I think you did see he can run the football, which is good. That makes us a little bit more diverse attack-wise. And you know, the obvious takeaway, our passing game wouldn't need to be tonight, and a lot of factors involved. And I think, you know, part of it is just him probably pressing too hard, and I'm certainly no quarterback expert, but sat in a lot of offensive rooms over the years, and it's one thing I've noticed, it's hard to get a quarterback just to, you know, relax a little bit and take what's there sometimes, mainly because they want to do well, and they want to push it, and they want to maybe do more than they need to sometimes, and amazingly, if you just kind of are patient, good things will, you know, eventually come your way. So I think it was part of that. And, you know, I think it's really directly tied to the cramping that he was experiencing. You know, you're trying so hard, you're wound up, you got your motor running pretty high level, and you know, he's an unbelievably conscientious guy. So this will be good for him to get through this and move forward. So really confident he'll be fine.
One more from Kirk Ferentz here on Mr. Mark Gronowski. He was, again, talking about how maybe he was just a little sped up in this new environment with the Hawkeyes in the Big Ten, though obviously against Albany, but big moment. And was he a little bit sped up?
Tuesday, I can't remember, but that's always one of my fears with a newer player, a veteran player, and quarterback especially. I'm going back to Drew Tate now, where I mean, you know, he was out of gas halftime or whatever game it was, and he just let me hit the wall hard because his mind runs hard. And Drew was a competitive guy that wanted to do things perfectly too. So, yeah, I think that's part of it. And just sometimes you got to play through that and experience it. And you know, I think this will benefit him moving forward because he's a good player and a good quarterback. And then the other thing, I mean, it wasn't perfect with all around him either. The protection looked pretty good, but ran some routes short because the new guys. And that's, you know, the age-old story too. Just like quarterbacks don't want to take the drop-off sometimes, and receivers, you know, they'll be quick but don't hurry, and they get hurried and shortened routes too. So, yeah, we had a little bit of that. It was a group effort.
And that's how Kirk Ferentz normally operates. Going to go to bat for his guys, certainly for his quarterback there, and not lay all the blame at one player's feet, in this case, Mark Gronowski. And it kind of, to your point earlier, Zach, that the wide receivers, man, they got to help him out.
Yeah, I mean, they got to do more. I know Kirk Ferentz mentioned running the routes to the right length, and just catching the ball is going to be really important for this team. Again, just like Mark Gronowski, these wide receivers have got to make the routine plays routinely, and if they don't do that, then it's not going to matter. And so it's really about, you know, both of those groups working together. And again, it's all about Saturday. It's all about Saturday. And I wonder if an earlier kick will help Mark Gronowski, because it was a 5 p.m. kick. He's sitting there all day watching football, like, you know, having to wait to make his debut. Like, I'm sure the nerves were just kind of piling up. I wonder if just being able to wake up, get on the bus, head over to the game, and play might help out a little bit with those nerves, not really allowing you to think about how nervous you are, but just going out and playing. So I wonder if the 11 a.m. kick will maybe help Mark Gronowski a little bit with that. But I mean, the fact that we're talking about kick times and like, those kind of ways to try and improve the passing offense is not a good sign after
No.
after an FCS game in week 1, excuse me. So it's obviously it wasn't up to snuff. It wasn't this. I mean, it might be the Iowa standard if we're being honest, based on what we've seen in the last couple of years. I hope not, but based on what we've seen in the last couple of years. But it is just one game. Like, I was upset after the game, and it took a little bit. I slept on it, and I woke up and I said, all right, it's one game, but Iowa as a team, but especially the quarterback and that passing offense, has a chance to completely rewrite the narrative on Saturday. Like, we could be sitting here at 3:30 on Saturday, and people are talking about how awesome Mark Gronowski is if he plays well and goes out and beats Iowa State. And so, like, it's just football. Like, it's crazy how quickly things can change on a dime. There's only 12 games. It's not baseball where you play 162 of these. Like, there's only 12 games, and so, like, you can flip flop the narrative of your season very quickly, and Iowa will have a chance to do that on Saturday.
We got to look at the updated depth chart, and obviously we know it's Iowa State this week for the Iowa Cord Cy-Hawk series. What are our initial thoughts on Iowa versus Iowa State? We'll break it down on the other side.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link, and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
And we do appreciate your support of the Voice of College Football and Iowa at the Voice of College Football. And, of course, Iowa Primetime Live with us. He's Zach Hiney. I'm Josh Helmer. And, of course, you can check out our written work as well. Hope you will. Hawkeyeswire.com. And Riley and Scout are doing a great job over there, too. Okay, want to dive into the depth chart takeaways. But before we do that, let's talk to the people as well. Eric Weidman, Eric, if I'm mispronouncing your name, I apologize. Eric, first time in the house. Happy to have you. Thanks for hanging out with us. Logan was asking earlier, and thank you. The audience already informed him, hey, what happened to Mark? It was a cramping issue for Mark Gronowski. And let's see. James was wondering, hey, why do you only have Hank Brown throw it just the one time? What if later in the season you need him to throw the football? And so instead of giving him some plays to do that, to see what might work, they threw it just the one time. Do you have an issue with that?
I mean, a little bit, but it's just, unfortunately, love it or hate it, it's just kind of how Iowa does business. They were up by so much late in that game. Like, Kirk Ferentz isn't the kind of guy who wants to be perceived as running up the score, and passing the ball can be seen as trying to do that. And so I think they liked what the running game was doing. They liked what the offensive line was doing, and knowing that Kamari Moulton was down, I think you wanted to see more of what you had in that running back room with Washington and Williams and Patterson and even Nathan McNeil getting in there for a few carries. And so I think I don't have a big issue with it right now. Hopefully that UMass game could be a game where Hank Brown gets some, is able to throw the ball a bit more if Iowa takes care of business. UMass looked terrible in their week 1 game this past week. And so I think, but we said the same thing heading into week 1. So who knows what to expect anymore. But I don't have on my list of issues from Iowa's game versus Albany, Hank Brown not throwing the ball more than one time is not super high on that list.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It's a good point, though. I mean, down the road, maybe you wish you would have done that. So we said earlier, hey, what's the panic meter with Mark Gronowski? Are you more 1 to 10, are you panicked? And okay, we're getting close to trying Hank Brown. 1 to 10, 1 being, hey, I'm not panicked at all. 10 being like, okay, sound the alarms. Trenton chimes in, Mark got paid $1 million plus. This is not college football as it was 10 years ago. And no, it's not. And when you get paid, folks are going to more than ever demand and want results. But okay, some responses on the panic meter. Eric chimed in, said 6 or 7. So kind of in my range there. James, right smack dab in the middle, a 5, not totally panicked. And Bellator de Veritas chimes in and says, Gronowski's going to be fine, you fools. And you know what? I hope you're right. And I'm not saying you're wrong by any stretch of the imagination, by the way. I'm just saying, for me to hop on Iowa Primetime Live, Iowa at the voice of college football, I'm not going to get on a broadcasting forum and be disingenuous. When somebody goes 8 for 15 and passes for 44 yards, and we spent all offseason, just like, oh, by the way, the couple of off seasons before that, talking about, hey, the one item that needs fixed and addressing is Iowa's passing game. And this guy, there's reason to believe he's going to be the guy that turns and changes it. And he goes and he throws for 44 yards against an FCS foe. I'm not going to hop on here and tell everybody that everything's hunky-dory. Just saying. I mean, yes, I am a little bit concerned. Not saying that we can't see Mark Gronowski morph into a really good quarterback for Iowa. I'm just saying that was a little bit of an alarming start. So that's just me, man. That's just where I sit at it. Will Whalen, a 7 on the panic meter. Again, 3. So a little bit of panic from you, but much less panic than probably the rest of us. And one final one here from Hawkeye Howard. I wanted to believe that he can turn it around. He being Mark Gronowski, of course. Gronowski's intelligent. He has the football experience to turn it around this next week. But as a Hawkeye fan and what we've been through, I am nervous. And I think that's kind of what I'm saying, Zach, and probably reflective of what a lot of Hawkeye fans are feeling.
Yeah, I think it's totally fair to be nervous. I'm nervous about it, but I think Mark Gronowski didn't wake up on Saturday morning and forget how to throw the football. It's a kid that threw for over 10,000 yards at the FCS level, which is still football, by the way. It's a lower level, but you still got to be able to play to throw for 10,000 yards at any level of college football. He's won 50 games in his career. Mark Gronowski didn't just forget how to throw the football on Saturday. He's still I believe he still has the talents to lead this Iowa offense to greater success. It was a terrible debut. A terrible debut, and first impressions are everything. And it wasn't a great first impression for Mark Gronowski. But again, I'm at a point where this Iowa State game is going to tell me a lot about where he and that passing offense are at. So I'm not writing him off. I'm not saying season's over. Obviously, there's some concern, but Mark Gronowski knows how to throw the football. I'm not concerned about that.
So we have some depth chart movement. The week 2 depth chart, the Iowa State depth chart unveiled earlier today. And no big surprise, Reese Vander Zee is not on that depth chart. He's been replaced by another sophomore wide receiver in Dayton Howard. Kamari Moulton, not totally shocking after we saw just the bits and pieces and found out that Zach, he had a shoulder injury that he sustained early in the contest versus Albany. But Kamari Moulton, not listed on this depth chart. Let's see what else. Bryce George had that freak elbow injury in warmups. He was no longer listed on this. Jonah Pace has shed the "or" label defensively with Bryce Hawthorne. So Jonah Pace defensively on the Iowa interior. He's the starter going into this Iowa State game. What else did I miss? Is there anything else that stands out from
Jeremiah Pittman's back? Jeremiah Pittman's back on the D line. He wasn't on the depth chart for last week's game. He had an off-season surgery and was working his way back to health. But it's good to see Pittman back. He was a guy that was, he was a starter in the spring, and then he got hurt and had to miss some time. So it's just it's more depth on that Iowa defensive line. They are super deep there, and that's a big advantage, I think, for Iowa going into this Cy-Hawk game. It's just how many guys that they can, put out there on that line. I think honestly they have close to 2 starter worthy lines where you obviously Herkett, Llewellyn, Graves, and Pace, but then you have a Brian Allen, a Merriweather, Pittman and Hawthorne, that's still a pretty good unit, and that's all your backups. And so I think Iowa is, outside of running back, and maybe even more than running back with the Moulton injury, it's the deepest unit, it's the deepest position group on the team. And so I think, it's good to see all those guys, listed on there, and they're all going to be needed for Iowa on Saturday.
Folks asking, hey, what does the opening line look like this Cy-Hawk game, Iowa and Iowa State? And let's see if I can get an updated number for you. I know a bunch of you are sharing numbers. I've got it -2.5 via FanDuel right now. So that's the latest line in Iowa State, of course, -2.5 favorite.
Take the money. Take the money on that. I'm shocked that it's that low after how Iowa looked on Saturday, after how Iowa State looked on Saturday, beating South Dakota 55-7. Rocco Becht with the highest single game completion percentage in Iowa State history. He was at 95%. I think he was 19 of 20 completion wise in that game. Like, Iowa State, with how well they play and with how bad Iowa's passing game looked, I'm shocked it's not more than 2.5, especially with that game being up in Ames. That seems like I don't know. That seems way too low. I was thinking more 3.5 or 4 on that point spread. So and I'm sure it'll work its way up as we get into later in the week. But I'm shocked at how low that is.
Well, it's kind of, in some ways, maybe it's easy to get a read on Iowa, but I feel like it might still be kind of tricky to get the complete read on Iowa, because if that was truly just if that was a nervy performance from Mark Gronowski, and some of my concerns and probably many Hawkeye fans' concerns are a little bit unfounded out there, then there's no reason that Iowa, with its defensive line, with a good group of linebackers, and with the running game and the offensive line that it has, Zach, there's no reason they can't go win this game with its work in the trenches if Gronowski could just go make the makeables. So I still think Iowa has a great chance to win this football game. I can't look at this game and toss on black and gold glasses for you here and say that, Iowa State has a clear quarterbacking advantage going in. Where would you say that Iowa has the advantage in this game?
I'll get to on the field in a second. I think off the field, I like Iowa being the underdog heading into this game. And I think this is going to be Matt Campbell's hardest coaching week of his entire tenure at Iowa State. Because all week long, the only thing his guys are going to hear is how much better Iowa State is than Iowa, how you should easily beat Iowa at home, how confident Cyclone fans are heading into this game, how bad Iowa's passing game looked. You're at home. You're going to be a top 10, top 15 team. All you're going to hear all week long is national experts picking Iowa State to win. And it's hard. It's hard for a coach to keep your guys' heads level. It's going to be tough for Matt Campbell. And I have no doubt that he'll, be able to do his best with that. But, the outside noise, people say that they don't read it. Players said that they ignore it, but it's impossible to. Even just going to class on campus and hearing what people are saying, there's a lot of confidence in that Iowa State team right now. And I think Matt Campbell is going to have to try and keep his guys level heading into this game. And if you're looking for Iowa, they have all the material in the world. They're underdogs. No one's outside of some Iowa fans. I'd be shocked if many national media outlets pick Iowa to win this game on the road. And Kirk Ferentz is never going to say it. He'll never bring it up. Not in a single meeting, but you bet your what, it's going to be on every single player and every single coach's mind heading into this game, is that he has a chance to break Woody Hayes' coaching wins record. He tied him at 205 with the win over Albany, and every single player on that roster and every single coach not named Kirk Ferentz on that coaching staff wants to win this game, especially to get 206. And so I think Iowa, when you're looking at, I don't want to call it bulletin board material, but if you're looking at ways to kind of motivate your guys, Iowa's got a much easier path to that. Iowa State is going to have to really work to get those guys ready to go and to try and just not pay attention to the media narrative. But on the field, I think the trenches is really where Iowa's going to have to dominate. That defensive line not just getting pressure, but getting home with sacks is going to be very important. If you allow Rocco Beck to extend the play and get out of the pocket, he's going to kill you. Those tight ends, especially. And so Iowa, it's going to be really important to win and get sacks on the defensive line, and then on the offensive side of the ball, I think that's an area of strength for Iowa is that offensive line and that running game. We know about Dominic Orange up the middle. He and Logan Jones will be a really fun matchup up front there. But the rest of Iowa's defensive line is unproven. I mean, obviously they played 2 games, but I think there could be some area to attack there. We know about Iowa State secondary, how they're a bit shaky against a Kansas State team that doesn't look like it's as good as people thought they were going to be preseason. But obviously nothing about Iowa's passing game on Saturday gave me any confidence that they're going to be able to take advantage of that. But if you're looking for, a way to try and get that passing game going, I would love a double move from a slot receiver up the middle. As we saw, Iowa State got beat on that for a touchdown against Kansas State. But it's the trenches for me, Josh, outside of the coaching stuff. It's the trenches for me that if Iowa doesn't win there, it's going to be a long, long afternoon.
And Iowa should be confident going into this thing based on the history of the series. You've won. I know you obviously, kind of had it last year. Then that McNamara interception and just went downhill from there. You're in complete control to go win that thing. And then obviously did not. And Conradi, the big kick. But Iowa has won 8 out of the past 11 in this series. They've won 6 in a row in Ames. And don't kid yourself. The Hawkeyes can absolutely lean on that independent from what happened between Iowa State and Kansas State over across the pond in Ireland, regardless of what happened for Iowa versus Albany. That matters. Iowa can be confident in the fact that they've played very, very well at Jack Trice Stadium going back all the way to 2011. So I like that part for Iowa. I like what you said, that you get to go in and play the chip on the shoulder a little bit. Iowa State in this series, not entirely, but yeah, to a pretty large degree, they've not typically been the favorite coming into this game. They got to wear that mantle this week, and Iowa gets to come in playing the underdog role. And oh, by the way, you're right. Yes, you have the Woody Hayes thing at play here, and look, it would not be quite as exciting, would it, to break that record versus UMass? I mean, this feels like the fitting moment for Iowa, and I think if they're gonna win this game, the Cy-Hawk game, Zach, it just going in looks like, it smells like, it feels like it's going to be defense, special teams, timely takeaway, big punt return, punt block, and running the football and winning in the lines of scrimmage in this game. I think that's the obvious recipe for Iowa to go win this thing and then pop off an explosive pass play if that's Ostringa, if that's Ortworth on a tight end screen at some point, or you slip them out in the seam and boom, you pop a 35-yarder at some point, or you just crack the running game a little bit. Even though Iowa State seems like it has some weaknesses out there on the boundaries at corner and maybe at safety too, Iowa doesn't look like it's well positioned right now to maybe go take advantage of that. So they're going to have to lean on the other areas where I think they can lean on those advantages, Zach, and win really in the line of scrimmage and just pop a couple explosives here and there. Defense, special teams, vintage Iowa victory. I mean, I think that's the recipe to go win this thing.
Yeah, and don't get it twisted, Josh. No matter what you hear from Iowa State fans this week, no matter how many beverages are consumed at the pregame tailgate, no matter how rowdy and excited they look, when the Big Ten or the Fox pregame coverage is there, the minute that those butts are in those seats at Jack Trice Stadium and that ball kicks off, they're going to be nervous because you haven't beaten Iowa at home since 2011. And I think it's really important for Iowa early to make a play. Take the ball and drive down and score right away, or force a turnover on the opening drive, or just, something early in that game, because all of a sudden what's going to happen is every single person in that Iowa State crowd is going to be like, oh boy, here we go again. Here we go again with Iowa at home. We're the favorites. We're supposed to win this game. And here comes this ragtag group of Hawkeyes from over in Iowa City who can't throw the ball, and they, all we've heard all week is how terrible they are, and now they're beating us here in the first quarter at home, and here we go again. It's just like 4 years ago, and David Montgomery fumbled the ball on the goal line, and it's just like 2019 where we ran into our own player and muffed the punts and like all this stuff. Like it's gonna be a lot of talk this week, but as soon as that ball kicks off and is in the air, those fans are going to be really nervous until Iowa State, until it gets to a point where Iowa State would pull away. Like they're going to be, anytime that game is within one possession, they're going to be extremely nervous. And I think Iowa can take advantage of that and try and get the crowd out of the game as early as you can. I think that'd be really important for this Iowa team.
And I'm not breaking any news here, but Gronowski, it's tough to forecast a scenario where you win this game and he doesn't play substantially better than we saw in the opener. So I do tend to agree. I think Iowa has the edge, both lines of scrimmage, and they need to make it look that way if they're going to win this ball game. But having said that, I don't know that alone is enough to go win the game. I do think that Gronowski is going to have to go make throws, and that's probably the way it's going to be versus a good Iowa State team and the rest of the meat and potatoes of this schedule, the Penn States, the Oregon, so on and so forth of the world. I want to get your thoughts on, the big game in college football from this past weekend, Ohio State and Texas. Ohio State, they made a little bit of a statement. What about LSU, Clemson, and some of the other ones, Notre Dame, Miami? I mean, there's a lot to dissect in the opening week. It was a lot of fun to have college football back in full force, and, we're still going with the Bill Belichick debut, so we can kick that around on the other side.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks, 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click Join, and then select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.
Thank you, Mark Rogers, and welcome back in, everybody. Iowa Primetime Live, Iowa at the Voice of College Football. Give us a follow on the socials out there. You can follow me at Josh on Hawks. He is at Zach_Hiney. At Hawkeyes Wire, that's where you can follow all of our written work, and at the VOCFB. Everybody should be following us over there. Hey, we got football tonight. North Carolina, the Bill Belichick collegiate debut versus TCU. TCU, a 3.5-point favorite, according to ESPN Bet. I'll be curious to watch North Carolina. I'm not super optimistic that this will go anywhere close to what Belichick was able to accomplish over, multiple decades with the New England Patriots and Tom Brady. I kind of am smelling that North Carolina is going to be a little bit of a train wreck under Bill Belichick. That's my opinion, but we're all going to get our first glimpse of it tonight.
Well, it can't be worse than Alabama under Kalen DeBoer so far.
Holy smokes.
I found a stat earlier that Kalen DeBoer has coached 14 games at Alabama, and he's already got 4 unranked losses as the head coach. Nick Saban had 4 unranked losses in 235 games coached at Alabama. Like it's not good over there, and the fan base is already turning on Kalen DeBoer down there in Tuscaloosa. People are calling for his job. It's not good down there. I don't know at this rate. I don't know if he lasts at the end of this season. I think if they play what they do or what they did against Florida State, he won't last till the bye week. I don't think. I think he's in some big trouble. Over 100%.
Yeah,
What's
take
what's
the
the
over,
number?
slam it. Come on, what's
the over
prop
on the?
bet?
Yeah, over 100% on the Bill Belichick girlfriend mention. I'm taking the over on the number of times Tom Brady is mentioned on the broadcast tonight. I'm taking the over on the number
Finish
of
your drink.
I finished a drink or taking over on the number of times that they mentioned his cutoff shirt and how he's either wearing it or not wearing it at North Carolina. Like any prop bet where there's an over under about a Bill Belichick stat or former player or former coach being brought up or mentioned, slam the over tonight.
The game of the week in college football, and certainly outside of, well, us watching Iowa, Albany, and the Hawkeyes season opener, it was Ohio State, it was Texas, and, well, I'm not here to tell you that it was entirely a beautifully played football game, but Ohio State wins.
Iowa football kind of game right there.
That's right. Yeah, beautiful to us. You folks are just getting accustomed to this, but we've been living this life for a long time. Ohio State, man, they serve notice that they're not going anywhere as it pertains to the national perch. It looks like coming out of the opening week, I thought Julian Sayin was pretty good, especially early in the game. Arch Manning took too long to get going. He made some nice throws late, but obviously the inaccurate throw on the 3rd down and 5 on the little crosser probably should have moved the chains right there, but it was inaccurate. It was behind his target. So, okay, the jury is out on whether or not Arch Manning is going to be the Arch Manning, the Arch Madness that everybody thought he was going to be.
Well, I'm curious for you, Josh, obviously working down there in the Oklahoma Sooner market. What were Sooners fans' reactions to, obviously, like they picked up a big win? John Mateer looks great, and then Texas looks bad. Arch Manning isn't living up to the hype. I'm sure Oklahoma fans were just having a glorious college football Saturday.
Yeah, it was a good one. Bevo tears, can I have another? Yeah, it was. The Sooner fans were certainly living it up. Anything else in the Big Ten stand out to you from the week that was?
A couple of things on the bad end. Northwestern, Preston Stone was horrific in his debut against Tulane. He had 6 turnovers, 4 interceptions, 2 fumbles. Absolutely terrible debut. UCLA looked really bad against Utah at home. That defense has not taken a step, and Nico Iamaleava in his debut wasn't great. So on the bad end, the bottom of the Big Ten looks to be pretty bad, but it looks like a pretty overall, a deep conference this year. I think Michigan and Bryce Underwood looked good in his debut. Obviously Penn State and Oregon and Illinois taking care of business up there at the top, along with Ohio State.
Nebraska slips by.
I was not impressed with Nebraska at all in that game. I mean, there was a home game for them at Arrowhead. I know it's technically a road game, but that was a home game for them. And I didn't really see massive steps forward from Dylan Raiola. Maybe if he spent more time, actually practicing and trying to get better instead of watching every single mannerism of Patrick Mahomes and trying to copy.
You got to admit, though,
pregame.
You got to admit he is he is an excellent doppelganger.
He is. Like if you ever need a guy in 5-10 years to play Patrick Mahomes in a movie, I know who I'm calling up because
it is a little creepy though. You got to admit
he's done his research, but maybe spend a bit more time. Maybe spend a bit more time getting antiquated with your receivers on the field and trying to become a bit of a better quarterback because right now it's not even close. So I was left unimpressed with Nebraska. Obviously that can change. But week 1, not feeling what the Cornhuskers are trying to sell me, and then a couple Big Ten teams not playing well against MAC schools. Wisconsin and Minnesota in particular weren't overly impressive against a few MAC schools, and neither was Rutgers. But overall, the conference does look pretty deep. Obviously, that's a top tier, but the middle, like the 4 through probably 11 or 12, I think teams could finish in any array of order, and it wouldn't really surprise me.
Speaking of fans that are feeling very good about, well, now a villain, if it's not a rival, just a former player, Tennessee fans with what happened with Nico Iamaleava and UCLA and them just getting waxed by Utah. That had to be pretty satisfying for Tennessee fans, and they looked good against Syracuse, and Aguilar looks like a solid quarterback. They might have gotten the better end of the deal. Certainly looks that way 1 week under the belt. This is going to be a exciting week in the Big Ten. You got Illinois. Duke is, a pretty good game. Let's see. What's the number on that? Two and a half
Power 4
points.
school. Yeah, on the road. It's a Power 4 school on the road.
Illinois favored by 2.5, so it's considered, close to a pick'em type game. Obviously, the Cy-Hawk game this week, Oklahoma State, Oregon this week, or Oregon big time favorite in that one, but it is a power conference matchup, and Michigan, Oklahoma. So we'll have a lot to react to next Monday night.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. And we're sitting here next Monday night. We're gonna know a lot more about Iowa. As we talk next Monday night, we're gonna either we're gonna laugh about how much we overreacted to a game against Albany, or we're gonna be very concerned about Iowa heading into Big Ten play. So I mean, it'll be fun one way or the other. We're gonna be here to break it all down.
Be back with you on Monday night. Can't wait for the Cy-Hawk game. And come on, go Hawks, baby. Just figure it out. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Until then, everybody have a great week. Enjoy the football tonight. TCU, North Carolina. The NFL is it's back this week. And, of course, the Cy-Hawk game. We'll be back to break it all down on Monday night at 6 o'clock on Iowa Primetime Live. Until then, everybody feel free to support the channel. We would appreciate that. You could buy a Super Thanks, which directly supports Iowa Primetime Live and Iowa at the Voice of College Football. Of course, we have merch, vocfb.com/shop, where please use our promo code, VOCFB Iowa, and you can catch us anywhere you consume your podcast on your favorite audio platform, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, you name it. That's going to do it for us. Everybody, have a wonderful rest of your Monday night and a great week. And until we reconvene a week from now, go Hawks, everybody.